Good evening and welcome to the Late Late Show with me, Irish Tommy. As always, thank you for joining. And as usual, we're going to get straight into the live chat and see who's with us early doors. George Kerr is straight in, saying Moyes, no deal, he can sling his hook. Tell us what you really think, George. Mandy G saying, as Moyes said today, we're doing very well for a club like West Ham. Please get him out. Yeah, I've spoken before about this little old West Ham mentality. This has just got to change. I don't think we can do that anymore, given our output financially. Maltese Hammer is in. No deal from Moyes now or ever. Evening all. Thanks for joining. I will hopefully be joined by a couple of guests fairly soon. I think James from E20 Zone is hopefully going to join us, and I think Gatesy is going to join us sometime. Luke, we're not sure about. He's not feeling the best, but he said if he does feel up to it, he'll jump on at some point. But yeah, I guess a lot of the talk right now and the focus is on the will he, won't he contract situation with David Moyes. This has been a little confusing recently. Various reports, some of them saying that talks are ongoing and are going well and are advanced, and that he will sign a new deal quite soon. And then other reports saying that the board are still very much undecided as to whether to offer him a new deal or not. Then I've seen another one saying Moyes may just decide to leave because so many of the fans don't want him there anymore. So it's difficult to know at the moment exactly what the story is with this contract. So a lot of confusion, everything is up in the air. I don't think any of us fans really know what's going on, or whether or not anything will happen soon, or whether it would be the end of the season before we would find out anything. But we will give you opinions, not just mine, but from the guests as well when they eventually arrive in. They're all fashionably late. And of course, the live chat as well. And of course, if you're watching this back at a later time, please comment as to what your feelings are on whether or not Moyes should get a contract and whether or not you think he will get one, because they may be two different things. We've got Alan Dunn in the house as well now. Alan, thanks for joining. Says morning, Tony, and hello to all West Ham fans wherever in the world from Australia. G'day, mate. Maltese Hammer, just feel Moyes is bringing attention to his contract, which is now backfiring on him. Perhaps it's hard to know exactly what's going on. Like I say, there's a lot of confusion. Drainhole Hammers saying, even Tommy, it's time for change. We have a squad that is primed to go at teams. Yeah, I think that's one of the things I'm going to get into. I think one of the major debates, and I'm sure I'll get into this particularly with James, is it's kind of on the plus side that the Moyes Moyes new contract fans are talking about what he's achieved, which is fair enough. And people like myself are more concerned at the moment, really, with the style of play and just how poor it is to watch. And this will be as good a time as any to bring in Mr. James Fever. How are you doing, mate?
Good, mate. Good. How are you, Tommy?
Good, yeah. Good, thanks, yeah. I was off today. Normally, I'm kind of scrambling a little bit after work to make sure and have everything ready for the show, but I was off today, so it was a nice, easy run-up to the show, so that's good. And I'm off next Friday as well, I think, so we'll definitely have a show next week, for those of you who are wondering. Unfortunately, sometimes my job gets in the way where I can't do a show every single week, but I do them whenever I can.
That's fine, mate. It's fine. But I'm glad you're good.
Yeah, you too, mate. And we've also got my old mate who I haven't seen for a little bit because he's a busy little bee, flying around the place.
If only you know.
This was live from his van or his car or whatever he's driving on his way back to Kent.
Yeah. It was fucking chaos on the A12 yesterday, I got to tell you. How you doing, James? How you doing, Tommy? You good?
Good,
yeah,
mate.
all good, mate. You?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Just got back from my daughter turned 16 back end of last year, and one of her presents that she got, she wanted gym membership, so she's coming to the gym with me now. It's nice little bit of daddy-daughter time. So I'm enjoying it.
I've got a daughter as well who's an absolute daddy's girl. She's 19 now, but yeah, I absolutely understand. Yeah, it's always lovely to get that kind of father-daughter time with them.
Yeah, it's good. I try not to embarrass her too much.
Is she as big a daddy's girl as my Cassidy?
I think she is, but she doesn't like to show it. Do you know what I mean? She's 16 years of age, so you know. So
have to keep
she's
appearances, don't you, at that age?
Yeah. But no, it's good. It's good. It's good.
Cool. Yeah, it's like Del Boy at the counter, isn't it? Play it cool, son. Play it cool.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, James is too young for all this talk. So.
I'm not. I'm 37, mate, and my missus wants to have a kid, so I'll see you in about 20 years' time when I can talk about this. You know what I'm saying? But it's what it is.
At least you know where to go for advice, James.
I know, mate. Yeah, man. Father's Union.
Yeah.
Okay, so
by then I'll probably be a granddad.
Granddad Gatesy.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm closer. She's 19, Cassidy, and she has a long-term boyfriend. So I'm waiting for the day when the phone call comes. But
I've got two boys that will be 21 this year.
We're basically going to get into the David Moyes. Oh yeah, you might beat me to it. Yeah, you might beat me to it.
We'll see.
We're going to get into the David Moyes situation. So I think I know where James is going to land. I think Gatesy, I'm not entirely sure, but so I'll start off with the sure bet. Obviously, a bit of confusion at the moment, James, about what exactly is going on. I think the first question, really, before you give your own opinions on it, is do you think he will get a new contract, or do you think it's really still up in the air and it could go either way?
I think he gets a new deal, mate. For me, when I look at it, David Sullivan's cheap, and he likes a cheap auction. And why would you break something that's going all right at the minute? I know the football's not great. I understand that. I get it. But there comes a time where you've got a man in place who's slow but steady. And I think a change would just... I don't think Sullivan's in for a change. Now, if he does look for a change, he's going to look for a change in a cheap option, in my opinion, because he ain't going for Alonso, Slot or Almiron. Definitely not. He's never bought a man out of his contract in his life, so he ain't going to do it now. So, yeah, I think Sullivan will offer him a new deal, but whether Moyes accepts it is another thing.
Yeah, Gatesy, do you think he's going to get one?
Yeah, I think because let's put it this way, from a business point of view, he's succeeded, hasn't he?
Yeah.
You know, when you look at it purely in business terms, he's ticked pretty much every box. You know, he's got 6th place, 7th place, European semi-final, European trophy, 3 successive seasons in Europe. And I said this on the voice note yesterday, Tom, I've had many conversations with people who are not West Ham fans, who don't watch us play week in, week out. And they're turning around to me and they're going, what the fuck are you lot moaning about? What more do you want? And I do kind of sort of go, I can understand you saying that from where you are, from the outside looking in. Please, 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 before you make any sort of judgments, though, could you please just watch the football for a few weeks and then come back to me? Because it is such a tough watch at times. The ironic thing is, I think the best game we've played in many matches, in my opinion, was actually the game at the weekend when we got beat 3-0. Really weird.
Yeah, I suspect you're both correct. I don't think Sullivan gives a rat's arse about the optics.
No.
Over the 90 minutes, I don't think he gives a shit. Like you, I think he just looks at the spreadsheet and says, that's good enough for me. If he can keep us in that kind of area of the table and keep getting us into Europe and going deep into the European competitions, then Sullivan will be absolutely happy with that. I think all of the board probably feel the same way. I think they just look at the X's and O's. They don't sit watching every game for 90 minutes, so I don't think they really care what the football looks like on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon or a Thursday night. So I suspect he will get a contract too. That's assuming, everything internally is ticking over nicely. I have no reason to think there's any problems between Tim Steidten and David Moyes. I'm not aware of any particular issues there. That's not to say there necessarily are none. I don't know what fallout might be there from the January transfer window. I don't imagine Steidten is particularly happy with what happened in January. And there is rumours as well that Liverpool might be sniffing around him. So I think if anything, we might be a bit more likely to lose Steidten than Moyes this summer, if I'm honest. But yeah, I think ultimately he will get a contract. It remains to be seen what that looks like. And of course, it depends as well what he's going to demand. I mean, if he's going to be in talks with Sullivan, who wants to get him signed up to a new contract, you'd have to say maybe even for the first time since he's become West Ham manager, he actually has a strong hand to play. He can show his track record, everything you just rattled off, Rob. He can say 6th, 7th, semi-final of Europa League, won the conference, last 16 this season so far in Europa League again, 7th in the league, I think, at the moment, and pushing for another European spot. He can put out those X's and O's and say and demand a certain amount of money. It will just depend on whether they can come to an agreement, Sullivan and Moyes, on what the contract looks like. That could potentially be the only stumbling block I could maybe see. I would imagine Moyes James at this point would be looking for a pretty tasty contract, and he would feel he's.
What you're saying is absolutely spot on, word for word. I absolutely agree with you 100%. I think it's more whether Moyes will accept the contract rather than being offered one. I think, let's be honest, for what he's done at West Ham over 4 years, whether you like him or not, he's done amazing things at West Ham. We've had amazing moments, like going to Lyon, going to Frankfurt, going to all these places like Seville, like even the conference final, Prague. He's done a lot of good stuff at West Ham. He deserves a contract, whether you like him or not. He deserves one. The difference is whether or not he accepts it or not. The fear is, what I have with it is, I just don't trust Sullivan, mate. Never have, never will. And Sullivan doesn't do the right thing. Now, if David Sullivan turned around and said, right, we're going to go out and we're going to get a high-end manager, like an Alonso, like a Slot, like an Almiron, I would respect it. I would, because I'd go, all right, fair enough. You're going from David Moyes and you're going up levels. David Sullivan's not doing that, mate. And that's the thing that I don't like to hear. And I hear it quite a lot. Is people are aiming their ceiling so high with these managers, and we ain't getting these top end managers, because it's who's really going to want to work under David Sullivan. There's not many people out there for me. So that's my thoughts on that.
What do you think, Gatesy? Do you think that the contract terms could be a potential stumbling block if Sullivan isn't willing to pay the kind of money that Moyes is looking for? Maybe is not willing. There was a good comment here, which is another good point, actually, from Ellen Dunn, is that will the new contract give Moyes the same kind of control that he's had up to now, or will it be a case of you're going to have to deal with the players that Steidten brings in and accept that Steidten now is the director of football or sporting director, whatever you want to call him? Do you think either of those things could be a potential stumbling block?
I think a lot of it hinges on whether Steidten stays or goes, quite frankly. I think that if, as you alluded to earlier about Liverpool sniffing around, I think if he goes to Anfield, then I think that possibly shifts a bit more of the balance of power into Moyes' favour, and he possibly has a little bit more leverage. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if Steidten stays, then and they try and sort of like frame the new contract where Moyes is sort of like giving up a little bit more ground as far as his remit is concerned, then it may well be that Moyes looks at it and goes, No, actually, I think really, I think Moyes probably does want to stay, but I think a lot of it is dependent upon the contract that's put in front of him, as it always will be. You know, what is his terms and conditions? What is he responsible for? And if it's something that he thinks is going to sort of like work for him, he'll probably sign on the dotted line. But as I say, I think it would be very interesting to see how this situation with Tim Steidten plays out, because I think a lot of what will happen in terms of his contract is probably going to be directly tied in with whether Steidten stays or goes.
Yeah. How do you, James, your opinion? Do you think the Steidten Moyes relationship and balance of power will play into this a lot, or a little, or not at all?
I don't think so. I just think it's just straightforward. He's going to get offered a contract, and it's whether Moyes wants to continue the project at West Ham. The thing is with Steidten, I think Steidten might have seen Sullivan's true colours in the January window. Like with the Osman deal, like we was looking at the Osman player out in Denmark, didn't get him, and then Brighton go and get him about 10 days later. Like, it's ridiculous, really.
Yeah, and I mean, I tell you what, James, just to touch on that for a second with that Osman deal, if what I'm hearing is true, then I think Steidten is very likely furious.
Yeah.
Because he was brought in for this exact purpose.
Correct.
Because Sullivan and the rest of the board presumably looked at the way that teams like Brentford and Brighton operate, where they're able to find these young gems, bring them in relatively cheap, and then have them play brilliantly for them and be great players, and then sell them at a huge profit. And the reason Steidten is here is to try and emulate that kind of model.
Great.
And then Tim Steidten goes and finds who he believes is one of these players in Osman, playing in Denmark, a cheap player, let's be honest. You know, Brighton's deal, I think, is 18 million, and there might be some add-ons, and I think there's a 10% sell-on clause or whatever. And then the rumour is that Sullivan spoke to Barry Silkman, and Silkman convinced him that it was too much of a gamble to take on an unproven player who's only been playing for a little while in Denmark, and then Sullivan just wouldn't write the check. Now, if I'm Tim Steidten, I'm livid. It's like, you've brought me here to do a job, and then you cut me off at the fucking knees in the January transfer window because Barry fucking Silkman. And Barry Silkman then tried to get Sullivan to go and buy his player, Jota, in Saudi Arabia instead. If I'm Steidten, like, seriously, like, that would fuck anybody off, James.
I agree. And this is when people keep telling people in the media and in the influencer world that Steidten's going to pick the next manager. I'm sorry, you're in for a rude awakening. It ain't going to be Steidten. It's going to be Sullivan. Sullivan owns the show at West Ham. He always has done. And what I can't get is people were saying about Sullivan for a long, long time. Now, all of a sudden, they've forgotten about Sullivan, think Steidten's just going to come in and start handpicking managers. It ain't going to happen, mate. It ain't going to happen. And it proved it in the January window with the Osman deal. It really did. Like, Steidten wanted him, Noble wanted him, Moyes wanted him. The one man who didn't want him is Sullivan. And then Sullivan's word is the final one at the end of the day.
Yeah, what's your take on that, Gatesy? I mean, I suspect there's probably a lot of friction there. I doubt very much if Steidten is a happy man right now.
Well, you wouldn't be. Like you say, he's been brought in for a particular purpose, and it looked like in the summer transfer window that the balance of power had shifted into his favour, because a lot of the transfer deals that were done in the summer, if we're led to be believed is the correct, were off of the back of his labours. He wasn't really utilised in this transfer window. I mean, Osman, I mean, that should have been your done deal. I mean, 18 million quid. What does that get you in today's market? I mean, that's probably a championship fullback, for Christ's sakes. It's punt money. And you say about it's a risk, this, that, and the other. Well, forgive me, but you mentioned them, Brighton and Brentford. They take risks on players that you've never really heard of, and they pay peanuts for them. And by and large, they come into the Premier League and they do a job because the clubs have done the due diligence. They know that stylistically they're going to fit. They're going to be a piece of the jigsaw that will fit in seamlessly. They'll get a good return on their investment down the track, and they just rinse and repeat. And you know, it works tremendously well. And you know, 18 million quid, if he came in and hit the ground running and did something similar to what Kudus has done, I mean, my God, I mean, you'd be looking at a massive return on that investment. But he's gone to another club, and I dare say probably in about 18 months, 2 years, he'll probably go to a Chelsea or a team like that for a vastly inflated sum, and we'll all be sitting there going, oh, there's another one that got away. Yeah. Complete bollocks.
Yeah, and to me, to be honest, James, it's really nothing to do with, because this is what's going to happen, right? He's gone to Brighton. If he doesn't work out at Brighton for whatever reason, then everyone's going to just say, well, there you go. You know, Sullivan was right. The club were right not to shell out that money for him. But to me, it's completely besides the point.
It is.
We're going to let Steidten do his job or we're not. Sullivan's either going to back him and trust his judgment or he's not. Otherwise, what the fuck did you bring him here for? Not every player will be a hit. You're going to have some players that will be a miss. But his track record suggests that he should be trusted. And now, obviously, if Osman goes to Chelsea to Brighton and hits the ground running, or over the next couple of years or 18 months proves to be an absolutely cracking player, then it's going to be an absolute embarrassment for Sullivan. But even if he doesn't, it's still a problem because Steidten has to be allowed to do his job.
I agree. Like I'm listening to you. That's why I'm not saying nothing, because I agree with every word you're saying. Like the problem we have is that Sullivan will always run the show at West Ham. Until the day he goes, he's always going to run the show. And maybe Steiden's looked at it and thought, he ain't going to give me the control that I really want in regards to picking players and picking a manager. Now, if there was a guarantee to say that Steiden's going to pick the next manager, I would believe it. But I don't believe a word. I don't believe a word of it, because we've had this scenario too many times. We had this scenario 2 years ago with Phillips, Rafinha, and Darwin Núñez. We've had it so many times with players, and come the back end of the window, we go in to get them, and we can't get them because there's a medical or there's something wrong. So I just don't trust Sullivan, mate. And at the end of the day, Moyes is an employee at West Ham. Yeah, he's done a very, very good job at West Ham. And for me, it's more about the respect with David Moyes that gives me the ump, because he deserves the respect for what he has done at West Ham. I don't think people handing him out the door, I don't think that's right, personally. Like, this is where you're either going to back him or you're going to sack him. But the fan divide goes on David Sullivan yet again, because he had that decision to make in the summer to say, right, you're either going to back the manager, go with him and see where we land, or you let him go, you bring the next manager in. And he's done neither. And it's just this sort of fan divide, Moyes in, Moyes out, it's escalated over the last 8 months. And really, I'll be glad when we actually know the full scenario, if I'm being honest.
It's such a polarising situation, though, isn't it, James? Because on the one hand, you're completely correct in that, should we respect his achievements as West Ham manager? 100%, beyond doubt. No argument there for me. You know, in terms of what he's brought to the table in that respect, no doubt about it. In terms of the entertainment value, it's so painful to watch. Honestly, it really is, week on week, and I find myself really torn, because it's like, we have been here before in that, you know, the previous time that David Moyes came in, okay, it was only a short-term thing. He went, we brought in a manager who was perceived to be next level, sexy manager. He'd won the Premier League. He'd been at Real Madrid, yada, yada, yada. And he was pretty much an unmitigated disaster. And I know that there's there's this thing of, you know, be careful what you wish for, and okay, fine, you know, I'll get that. But honestly, anything in life is all about balance, okay?
Yeah.
And for me, I know that from a business standpoint, David Moyes would absolutely get a contract tomorrow, no doubt about it. On the basis of what he's brought to the table from a business perspective, there is no argument. However, it is at its core, in my view, it always has been and it always will be. This is an entertainment industry, and I just don't find it very entertaining, chaps.
But the only problem is with that, Rob, and I hear that quite a lot. I understand what you're saying because I'll be honest, the football isn't great, but there has been worse moments with West Ham where West Ham played worse of football than this, like over the years, like
Didn't
Avram
like that
Grant.
either, James.
Yeah, but where we are right now is because of the way we play. Like we suffocate teams in, and then we hit them on the break hard.
I'm
Well,
not sure.
we've done it a few good times. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
whether you like the football, whether you like it or you don't like it, like with me, I don't mind the counter-attacking game. If we do it right, we can be deadly. Like,
Yeah,
do you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
But it's one of them ones. It's what you like fancy, yeah. But there's no guarantee that a new manager's going to come in and we're going to play unbelievable football. That's the one thing I will say.
I don't
No,
mind counter-attacking football, guys, but for me, counter-attacking football at the Emirates was great. You know, going there and doing a number on them just before the new year. That was so sweet. I can't lie. You know, I was there, and it was beautiful to watch. But when you're doing it at home against fucking teams like Sheffield United and teams like that, I'm like, what the fuck is this?
I'll tell you where I stand on this. Because I like to try to be balanced about it. So when someone makes an argument like you, James, for why he should get a contract, I can't argue with you. On paper, on X's and O's, as a purely business decision, and you could even say he deserves a new contract. I've gone through everything. We all know what he's done since he's come to the club, right? We've gone through them already. So I completely understand the argument as to why David Moyes deserves and should get, and probably will get, a new contract. Completely understand when you make your arguments, James, absolutely understand where you're coming from. And I won't even argue with anything that you said about what he's done at West Ham and that he has done very well overall. Here's why I would not give him a new contract and would move on to a different manager. He has been very heavily backed, right? We are one of the higher spending clubs in world football. We have spent a hell of a lot of money. We've brought in some excellent players. The bench is a bit weak at the moment. We'll get into that maybe in a bit. But, you know, with everyone fit, our first 11, you know, is a very good side. He's heavily backed, spent a lot of money. So while I give him credit for what he's done, I've never believed that he's done miracles at West Ham. I think with how heavily he's been backed, he should have won or at least gone very close to winning that Conference League. That was there to be won. Our squad was far more expensively assembled than any other squad in that competition. Far more expensively assembled, number one. And also, given the money we've spent and the team that's been built, we should be competing for a European spot in the Premier League. I mean, we should be in that area of the table, given the back had and how much money is spent. So I don't think he's pulling up trees in the way that some people make out he is. So I think if another manager were to come in with a better style of play, and I hate watching us under Moyes, I really do. I think it's horrible to watch. And there are days when some games that we have to endure, James, I think even you would admit, are absolutely atrocious. It's awful.
Don't get me wrong.
And here's
I
the
agree.
thing. It's not that I know some people talk about next level and pushing on. It's very hard in the Premier League. It's very competitive. I would be happy, very happy, for another manager to come in and keep us in and around the league where we are. Get us out of the group stage of, say, our Europa League. I think there are plenty of managers that could keep us where we are and do what David Moyes is doing, given how well backed our managers are now financially. I just want to see a manager come in. He doesn't have to, like I say, bring us in and challenge us for a Champions League spot necessarily. He could do what Moyes has been doing, but I just want to see us do it in better style. I just
Yeah, but-
can't. James, honest to God, the thought
But-
of having to watch Moyes ball for
I
another
know what
2
you're
or
saying.
3 years is
Yeah.
fucking depressing.
But isn't that a sideward step, what you just said there? Going
No,
from
not to me.
Moyes to someone else. When if you want to go up to the next level or you want to compete and you want to stay here, you go out and get a high-end manager to stay in that position. Like we make out or we say that we're a big club, but no one mentions about the owner of the club. Yeah, it's time for the owner to step up to the plate and show his ambition to the club. Yeah, I agree with you. The style of play is shit. Right, but I'm a West Ham supporter, and I support them when they're playing amazing football. And when they're playing shit, that's the point of being a supporter. You do it, you go through the best times, you
It
go through the worst
doesn't
times.
mean you have to accept the shit
No,
football season
you-
after season after season
yeah,
after
but
season.
at the end of the day, you're a supporter, so you support them through the good times and the bad. Like
Yeah, but not
simple
the
as
manager necessarily.
that, right? Yeah, but that's the point of being a supporter. Like to
I
me,
don't support the manager. I'll always support West Ham, regardless. I do not support this manager continuing at our club because I just don't want to see another 2 or 3 seasons of this dross fucking shit football. I can't do it, Jim.
See, the thing is, with me, I'd rather him stay here for a couple more years, build the side up, and then hand it over. That is what I want because
He's
I
had
don't think
enough time and money for me to
yeah,
do
but
that.
there is no way, no chance that a manager is going to come in and restructure this side because we need a completely new bench. We need a centre forward at the club. I think we need 2 centre halves at the club. I think Zuma's gone. I think Agued's hit and miss. I think we need a covering right back at the club. I think we need a new goalkeeper.
Why would you? Yeah, but we don't need Moyes to be here to do that. The new manager can get them players in.
Yeah, but a new manager is going to want big money, and for me,
We
I
get
want
big money here.
Yeah, but we don't, mate. It's Sullivan. This is this is the thing that I can't keep. Sullivan will not do it, mate. I swear on my life. Yeah, and I'll say it with my heart. Yeah, if this was Steidten and there was another owner, I'll be with you 100%. I'll be in the Moyes out camp all day long. But why Sullivan's here? He's always going to go for the cheap option. He will go for that cheap, free, like the person who hasn't got a bite of his contract. Now, let's put it this way. We get 65,000 to 70,000 in the ground. Yeah, hospitality, attendance, etc. Right? We should be aiming for a big high-end manager, but we won't do it because it's David Sullivan in charge. And where people got to get it in their head that David Sullivan runs the show, like, and it proved it in the January window, and it will prove it at the end of the season. Right? I get it with the style of play. I'm with you all day because it's shit. But with me, I support West Ham through thick and thin. That's my own personal opinion. Like, I've seen West Ham under Grant, who was absolutely awful, but I carried on going up and down the land, supporting this club that I love. So for me,
Granted, I mean, I think we all agree
and that is
with
a thumbs up.
Yeah, granted. I think no, I think we all agree with that. I mean, look, we'll all still be West Ham supporters at the end of the day, but for me, this is about the manager, and I just don't support Moyes getting a new contract. And I'll be West Ham, even if he does. I'll still be West Ham. I'll still have to sit through the fucking games, unfortunately. But I don't know. What do you think on all of that, Gatesy? Where do you stand?
Oh, mate. Like I'm the same as James in the sense that I will support my club through good times, through bad, through entertaining football, through not so entertaining football, successful results, fuck all. It doesn't matter to me. My support for the team will never change. But as I say, I've got 4 season tickets. I'm not saying this to be braggadocious. I'm very lucky to be able to go with me kids and all the rest of it. I know that, and I just sort of sit there and go, I am spending a lot of money for the tickets, for the travel, but when I'm lucky enough to get tickets for away games, for all of that. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, a lot of the time I'm not really enjoying it. I don't see that it's in terms of, like I say, in terms of sort of like I say, in terms of achievement, Prague was great, blah, 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 all of the other things, like I say, boxes ticked, whatever. But as I say, for me, this is just my opinion. And look, I'm not saying I'm right and everybody else is wrong. It's an opinion. For me, I just think there needs to be a little bit more of a shift towards entertaining the fan that's turning up to the ground week on week. It's It's really, as I've said it before, I'll say it again. There have been games where I have wanted to gouge out my eyeballs and stamp on them. It has been horrible to watch. Even if we've won, there have been games that have been just, like I say, the Sheffield United game was a case in point. I was literally in that second half, the game at the London Stadium, we won it 2-0, and I was literally falling asleep in the second half. And that is not an exaggeration. I was literally doing the nodding dog. And it's like, I shouldn't be fucking doing that. And this is not, prime Man City or anything like that. It's fucking Sheffield United, for Christ's sake. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but we're the home team against a team that's probably going to go down with an amount of points that probably wouldn't stop you from fucking driving. And we're playing like that. Come on, we're better than this. The amount of money that we've spent, you said it, Tom, the amount of money that we have spent in relative terms to what managers of years gone by have been afforded with. I believe he could do better in the entertainment stakes. I think that for me, there just needs to be more of an emphasis towards entertaining the fans. And while I'm on it, also I will say as another thing that I do think that not just the entertainment, but for me, the neglect of a burgeoning amount of talent that we have got in the youth ranks that is just completely being chucked by the wayside. Dereliction of duty to me.
I disagree on that, but it's a different story.
Yeah, I suppose that is another aspect of it, James. I think, obviously we have a very loyal fan base. A lot of fans, obviously, for the home games at the London Stadium. And I think some of the best away support in the whole country. Amazing away fans. And they do spend an awful lot of money following West Ham every season. And, you cannot dismiss.
I understand that.
You're saying, I don't want to spend all this money. And some fans won't keep spending all this money, like to go and watch absolute dross.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, isn't that why you're a supporter of the club? Like, for me, I see it with Grant.
James, you're being harsh. You can't just say to fans, "Oh, fuck you and your entertainment and wanting to see good football. Just suck it up and watch this shit."
Yeah, but if West Ham were fighting relegation, would you go? Because I fucking would. If I wasn't not going now because of Sullivan, because I want that scumbag out of the club, right? Which no one seems to mention ever again. It's always on Moyes. I would still go follow this team up and down the fucking land, because I support West Ham United. Win or lose, claret or blue.
And our fans will. We have amazing loyal fans.
You're putting it on. What I'm saying is this: you're putting it on to sort of the style of play. Then the style of play is shit, right? Yeah. And I can openly say that. But when I see people say I'm going to throw Jacket in because of the style of play, that to me just makes no sense to me, because that's the point of being a supporter. Like, you support the club. So you support the club whether West Ham are in the Championship or West Ham are at the top end of the league. There has to be a balance, right? What Gatesy said, and Gatesy right with what he said about the balance, right? I just feel this has gone way over the top, too long, and it's down to one man, ladies and gentlemen, David Sullivan. Because that man should have sorted this out in the summer, but he was too busy trying to flog Declan Rice and talk sport. But no one mentions it. It's as simple as that. But he gets away with it scot-free. So
yeah, look, we all look. I'm no fan of Sullivan whatsoever. I'll dance a jig when he sells the club. But to be fair, nobody can say that he has not backed Moyes in the transfer market.
Oh, he's been backed.
No one can say that. I mean, Moyes has been heavily backed in the transfer market and has been able to bring in the players that he wants to bring in, by and large. I know the January window just gone was a bit of a shit show and not well done. But that's for some reason always been the case with us in January. We're one of the worst clubs for signing players in January. We're terrible in the January transfer window.
Who is that down to, though? Do you think that is down to Sullivan, or is that down to Moyes, do you believe?
Sullivan.
There is a mixture. I mean, don't Moyes is on record more than once of saying, you know, how difficult it is to sign players in January and how they become more expensive and trying to get the player that you want out of their club mid-season and stuff like that. So Moyes has been very coy himself about spending money in January. I don't think Moyes especially likes spending money in January himself. So there's probably a little bit of both. I think Sullivan is worse. I think Sullivan's arsehole puckers up whenever he has to open the checkbook in January,
Right.
which is strange because in the summer he does open the checkbook, and he has for the last few summers, which has actually been a little bit refreshing. You know, I mean, he has gone out and spent good money on a lot of players. You know, we've assembled some very nice players in this squad. So I don't think you can make the excuse for Moyes that after all this time at the club, that he still needs time to build his squad. That to me is horseshit. He's had more than enough time and more than enough money to assemble the squad that he wants. I don't think he can complain about that. He's not a manager in his first fucking season anymore, where he says, because that's the shit he was saying when he first came in. Oh, it's going to take time to assemble the squad that I want and stuff. If he hasn't done it by now, he's never going to fucking do it.
But I don't remember when he did come in, though, Tommy. Just to say this, there was no scout there. It was him and Rob Newman who started it off. Right, he was the man who brought Rob Newman in, who then brought in Paqueta and Emerson. Don't get me wrong, we've made fuck ups in the transfer window. We can all openly admit that. But Moyes is the man who signed Souček and Bowen in the January window when he first arrived. Like when West Ham were in the downward spiral. He's the one who got Jared Bowen from Hull. He's the one who got Souček. David Gold was the man who got Soufal, right? So when I look at the January window, I called it on E20 about 2.5 weeks ago because I've had a bit of a break due to like family issue, right? And my words were, you watch exactly what he's going to do. He's going to go out, try and get look at two players, and he's going to pull the plug on both of them right at the last minute. But that's what David Sullivan does. He done it with Calvin Phillips and Rafinha. He done it with Darwin Núñez when he was at Benfica. He wanted to go and have a medical with Darwin Núñez when the geezer's playing for Uruguay. It makes no sense. But it's the same issue all the time that he does, and the same thing he does all over the time. There's only one window where I would say that Moyes really sodded it up, and that was in the Europa League season when he should have went out and got a striker, and he majorly sodded it up in that window. But this window, I think Moyes wanted players, mate. Right, and not getting them, I think, is a crime. If I'm being honest, especially two players that we definitely knew we was never going to get. Like, do you know what I'm saying? So there you go.
Yeah, the January transfer window was completely unacceptable. I mean, it would be bad if we hadn't sold anyone, but Kehrer left first, Coventry left, Benrahma left, Fornells left. Fornells scored a cracking goal this evening, by the way.
I believe we've got a weaker squad now than we had before we started the transfer window, boys. And I don't remember looking at the bench before the transfer window opened on the 1st of Jan and thinking, fuck me, our bench is really sort of like a game-changing bench. It's now worse.
It is worse, mate.
I mean, the only player we got rid of that we replaced really was Coventry. If you could say Phillips essentially replaced Coventry, you could say. And he's very, very rusty. The other three players that went out, we haven't replaced. We didn't get a centre back, but I think we'll probably be okay there. But that left side of the midfield badly needed addressing, and we haven't done that either. And even though, you know, we were apparently trying to get Osman, trying to get Jota, there was someone else as well, I can't remember his name, that we were kind of talking about as well. And it's hard to fathom, James, how this situation has been allowed to occur, and it's something that could bite us on the arse now, because we basically are relying now on that left-hand side on Paqueta getting back after this weekend and staying fit for the remainder of the season, and he's basically going to have to play every bloody game that's left on the left-hand side, because if he gets injured, you know, Kudus should never play on the left, in my opinion. Saw that against Man United. He can't cut in and shoot because he's on his wrong foot. And that's one of the kind of biggest strengths and the biggest dangers that Kudus presents, is that when he cuts inside off that right-hand wing, He's absolutely terrifying
Yeah.
because he can get shots off on that left foot. He was not the same player on the right-hand side against United. It was like playing with one leg, really, when he's out on that side. So if Paqueta picks up another injury or gets a red card and is out for 3 games or something like that, or just gets completely exhausted, there's nothing else on that left-hand side, James.
David Sullivan, mate. I'm not like people are going to say, "Oh, it's Moyes' fault." Oh, it's Moyes. David Sullivan needs to show ambition. Ambition, right? We was currently 6th in the league, and the man signed no one. How long have we known at this club we've needed a left-sided player, left-sided attacking player? Like, we knew Ben Rama wasn't good enough. Listen, I've done shows reviews for many years, and I used to back him up ahead of a lot. Now I looked at him, I went, he's not good enough. Right, we need better. Yeah, we need a left-sided attacker. Right, DM was a problem because if Alvarez goes down, we have got no covering DM in there, and that was a little bit of a problem. Yeah, but we needed some attacking options, right? And we didn't bring in none. And now we're relying on Mikel Antonio to come back and start to hit form when he didn't hit form before he got injured. And if Paqueta goes down again, we've got no creativity. It's just, for me, like when I look at the January window, like I could see what was coming. Yeah, like we was getting rid of kind of Coventry, but we're bringing Calvin Phillips for the British quota. Do you know what I mean? Tilo's gone, Fornells is gone, Ben Rama's gone. And what Gatesy said is spot on. When you look at that bench, do you have any faith in Maxwell Corner and Danny Ings to come on and change the game for us? Because I certainly
Not
don't.
really.
Do you know what I'm saying? So there you go.
I think Corney I like.
Cornet, I've got a bit more faith in. I've got to be honest.
I think there is a player there, but he gets so little game time that he's always going to come on really rusty. He's just never going to be Matt Sharp. He just doesn't get enough minutes to ever be sharp. We've seen that with Phillips. In his first 2 appearances, he's really rusty. Now we all know what Phillips is capable of. We all know he is actually a very good player, but he needs to get up to speed. And I think Corney's in the same situation. But Corney does have a bit about him at least. But the problem there is, of course, Moyes just doesn't like him, so he's not really a viable option either. So yeah, that left-hand side, we're fucked if Paqueta goes down. He's just going to end up chucking Kudus out there again, where I think he's not nearly as effective. We'll keep going maybe until the hour. We're like 47 or so minutes in. So I just do want to touch on the game this weekend. Obviously, a very difficult game. We won't have Paqueta available for this one either. He's not back yet. Probably the weekend after we'll have him back. But Arsenal are hitting form again. They look really, really good against Liverpool. I think Arteta tactically got that absolutely spot on. And this is going to be a very tough game, Gatesy. Do you have any confidence at all that we might get something out of it?
Funnily enough, yes. Simply because we've beaten them the last 2 times we've played them. Now, can we do it a 3rd time? It's going to be difficult, and their tails are going to be up. And we've had a little bit of a knockback again in the United game. But as I say, the one thing I will sort of gives me a little element of hope is that I think we actually played quite well. I think in another time, if we'd have actually managed to get a little bit more luck and better finishing, we might have actually got something out of that game as well. So, look, the loss of Paqueta is something that's not ideal, but we basically played without Paqueta for an hour at the Emirates and managed to come away with a 2-0 win. And they absolutely, from an offensive point of view, they dominated the match, but it was a defensive masterclass. Bonner was sensational that night. Could we do it again? Listen, you just never know in football. I think they're going to be favourites. Let's make no mistake about it. But look, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. We could shithouse it. We could fluke it. But against teams like the upper teams, I've got no problem with that. Like I say, my issue is when we do it against the lesser teams, especially at home. I think we should go after them. But if we sort of play a counter-attacking style of play and bore the pants off of Mikel Arteta, do you know what? Not a problem there in that situation. That's fine by me.
How are you feeling about this one, James?
perfect game for West Ham to get back on track. If there's a game that you need to get up for, it's Arsenal at the LS. Declan Rice coming back for first time in the Premier League. I agree with what Gatesy said. Like, West Ham played all right the other week, but we didn't get the result. Like, do you know what I mean? And I think against Arsenal, they're going to come forward. It's going to suit us down to the ground because the style we play is a low block, hit them on the counter attack, and aim for set pieces and things like that, which is going to be perfect for us because we're a bigger, more physical side than Arsenal are. Do you know what I mean? They've got a lot of tricky light players and a lot of pace, but we've got a lot of physical players, and I think we need a physical presence up front. I'm hoping Antonio's fit. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I'm hoping he's fit because if he's fit, he's on the bench, he's an option, and we need an option from the bench. But I'm quite optimistic. Yeah, I mean, I done a little preview earlier on E20, and I turned around and said I fancy the draw. I fancy us to get something. I don't think we'll beat Arsenal this one, because if we go and beat Arsenal again, I'll be shocked, especially the way we've been playing recently. But if there's a game West Ham needs to get up for, and which doesn't really need any effort, is this one. So I am going to say a draw, mate. I don't think West Ham beat them, but I don't think West Ham lose, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose this is again one where on paper you would strongly fancy Arsenal to win the game. They're in better form. Obviously, they're higher up the table than us. Playing really well right now. Great performance against Liverpool. We're struggling a bit, especially without Paqueta, who's our best player. But while like you, I think in the end we'll probably lose the game. I think it will still actually be very close. Because for some reason, whenever we play Chelsea, Arsenal, or Tottenham, regardless of either team's form, for some reason we always just turn up and give them a game. Like we never really get spanked by Arsenal, Chelsea, or Tottenham. So we tend in those games to turn up because they're such high-profile games, like you say, James. And I think the players are really up for it, particularly our place. The fans are really up for it. And we just tend to do well in those games and be very competitive.
Yeah.
Even if they're the better team, even if we're under the cosh a bit, you know, the players tend to put their shoulders to the wheel in these games and put in a huge effort. And I think we'll see that again on Sunday. The atmosphere will be, you know, really good, packed house. And I think we'll give them a game. I think we'll make it difficult for them. I think Arsenal do sometimes run out of ideas. If you're employing that low block, which we've done against them before, I think that's what happened to them when we beat them. I think we were so solid defensively, you know, throwing ourselves in front of everything, blocking everything. Keeper, when he was called on, did what he had to do to keep them out. I think in the end, Arsenal just kind of ran out of ideas. They weren't quite sure how to break us down. So we could do that potentially again this weekend. I hope we can do that again, because that is what we're going to do. They're going to pin us back probably for large periods of the game. Ultimately, I don't think it'll be quite enough. If Paqueta was playing, I'd be a bit more confident, because he's that one player that we have that can just do something genuinely magical. We still have a chance with Bowen and Kudus that one of them could do something, but Paqueta for me is always the key. He's that kind of genius. You know, I remember that little ball over the top at home against United for Bowen's goal. I mean, it was just absolute perfection. There's only so many players that can do that stuff, and Paqueta's one of them. If he was playing, I think I would agree with both of you that we get a draw. But I just suspect without him, we just look a little bit more toothless. We struggle a bit more to create really good goal-scoring opportunities. So I think we'll lose it narrowly in a kind of dogged performance. But I don't think by any means that we're going to get spanked, because we just never allow ourselves to get spanked by Arsenal, Chelsea, or Tottenham. I think the players have too much pride.
Yeah.
And it means too much to them to kind of allow that to happen to them in these games. But as for, excuse me, as for the personnel in this game, I guess the two big ones for me would be the back four, because we don't have kind of a shoe-in back four at this point. You know, there are some times when you think you can just name out the back four immediately. We all agree that's who will play and that's how it will be. But there is an argument, absolutely, for Johnson to play at right back. And then there's the argument for the centre-back pairing, because Zuma looked like a cripple against Man United. I mean, his movement was really poor. So for me, actually, I think Johnson looks like he's in really good form and he's confident. And Sofal has not been in great form for me recently. I would play Johnson at right back, and I would play Mavropanos and Aguerd in this game as a centre-back pairing. Obviously, Emerson picks himself. Any dissent on that or different views? Would you go a different way?
Is Ogbonna fit?
I believe so.
I'd put him in. I'd put him in with Mavropanos. Other than that, I agree with you, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, you did say, earlier, Gates, that Ogbonna actually, in a way to Arsenal, had played a blinder, actually. He had a really good game. I don't know. I love Oggy. Absolutely love him. And he's been an unbelievable player and servant. But I just don't know for this. I guess if it's back to the walls, you can make the argument, absolutely. If this is going to be a low block, Arsenal possession, you could absolutely make the argument that Oggy might be a better option than Aguerd, who maybe doesn't suit that style of defending as much. But you could say the same thing about Zuma. Does Zuma's lack of mobility matter really that much in this game if we're going to just defend our own box? So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Oggy start. And in this game, probably Zuma could play, but yeah, I'd still go with Mavropanos and Aguerd.
I'd rather he didn't play Zuma. Please, no.
Yeah,
he has been bad, I must admit. For me, I think Mavropanos has to play in this game. I think he's had 2 good games against Arsenal. He had a good game in the League Cup, and he had a good game at the Emirates. He even scored the second goal. So I think he had a good game. I think he has to play.
That's another thing as well. He might do we absolutely knew this was going to happen, where he might score against his old team again.
Yeah, he's actually played all right. I would go with Zuma and Mavropanos. I think that's a good pairing. I think Aguerd is not needed in this game. West Ham ain't going to play no high line or nothing, where teams are going to try and hit us on the break. West Ham are going to play a low block. Yeah, we know what's coming, and they're going to sit there, and then once they turn over possession, they're going to try and get out and get up the pitch. So I would go with Zuma, Mavropanos, and I would play Ben Johnson. I think Ben Johnson's done all right since he's come back, and I think Sofal is a player that gets away with it a bit from the fan base, if I'm being honest. I think some games he looks okay, and in some games he's a bit all over the place, and he's pretty poor. So I give Ben a go.
I'd also worry about him a little bit against Martinelli. I think Johnson has a bit more mobility. I'd trust it a bit more against Martinelli. I guess midfield, then, we know Alvarez will play. We know Suchik will play. And with Paqueta not available, it's going to be interesting to see what Moyes does there, because it's kind of hard to call this one for me about what way he's going to go. Do you think, given Phillips' kind of errors and rustiness, that he'll still put him in against Arsenal? Or will he just put Ward-Prowse in there with Kudus left, Bowen right, and just chuck Antonio straight back in? Or will he play Ward-Prowse on the left and play Phillips with Kudus, maybe right, Bowen up top? What way do you think he'll go, Gatesy?
Oh, God.
Or even what would you do if it's easier? Yeah.
Okay, what would I do? I think I would probably go Alvarez, and I would actually play Phillips, because I think you've got to, we're saying about he's rusty. Well, there's only one way to get rid of that, isn't there? Let's play him.
Yeah, there's only one way to go off the cobwebs.
Yeah, exactly. It's the only way. He's not going to sort of get any better if you're bringing him on for the last 10, 15, 20 minutes. It's not going to work. And it may well be that maybe he makes a mistake in this game. But I think you're going to have to sort of understand that he's sat on the bench for the best part of a year and a half, and he's got to get rid of that rustiness some way, somehow. And the only way you do it is by playing games. So I think personally, I would stick him in the midfield with Alvarez. I'd probably play him as a sort of like as a defensive mid alongside Alvarez. He's got a little bit more mobility than Souček. I'd actually chuck Souček onto the bench. I know Moyes won't, but I would. And then I would probably go with Ward-Prowse just sort of like slightly ahead of them, sort of like a triangular sort of midfield three, if you will.
Plus,
And then
Alvarez has that mobility that,
yeah,
you know, it gives him that license to get forward a bit as well.
exactly. They can sort of take it in turns, can't they?
Yeah, and Phillips can sit, you know.
Yeah. So I'd probably sort of like have Ward-Prowse in there. I'd go. I mean, you know, is Antonio going to be back? Don't know. Maybe, maybe not.
He'll be available, I believe. Yeah, it's just a question.
Yeah, I think if he is, I might be tempted to start him. And again, I'm probably very similar to James in that I'm like, well, what's he done this season? Not an awful fucking lot. Let's be completely honest. But you know, you look at the cupboard and it's like, well, the cupboard's bare. It's like, what's your options? You could put Mubama in there, maybe. You could put Ings there, maybe. Would I? Probably not. So probably the only other option would be to put maybe Antonio as the 9, Kudus and Bowen sort of like buzzing around either side. I think you could sort of like, I'd like to sort of interchange them, sort of like switch them three around. I'd have them quite a fluid sort of three, sort of like interchanging, so that you're sort of like you're bamboozling them. We're probably going to have to be quite efficient in terms of chances when they come, because I think it's fairly safe to say that we're going to have the sort of like the lesser of the percentage of the possession. So when the chances come, those three, when it comes to them, they've got to bury their chances. We can't have any wastefulness, because if we do, then we're going to come up short.
Yeah, midfield 3 and front 3 for you, James. Who's that?
I'd go 4-3-1-2. That'd be my system. I think people say about Souček, but we have got no other sort of attacking options, right? Who's really going to score goals for us other than Kudus and Bowen? Yeah, when you look at other people, there's really not really many. I think set pieces is going to be key in this game. I think West Ham can really dominate at set pieces, especially against this Arsenal side. And we did score last time at the Emirates from a set piece. So my midfield 3 would be Alvarez, Phillips. I would play Ward-Prowse in a 3-man midfield, and then I'd push Souček a bit further on as a player that he's better up the pitch rather than in midfield. I'd rather him be up the pitch and being like running around trying to get stuck in and trying to win stuff, and being a threat at set pieces, and then have Kudus and Bowen as a 2-man attack. What it is, we need Kudus and Bowen on the last line of the defenders, because they're the pace merchants of our team. Right? We need balls over the top and down the sides for them boys to run onto. I think if they can play as a 2-man strike force, and Antonio comes on and you can change it around and like maybe go into a 3-man strike force and take Souček off after an hour, then so be it. But I think Souček might have to play in this game. I don't want him to play. I really don't. I don't think he's good enough. And I think if he doesn't score the goals, he's pretty ineffective.
I don't understand. You don't want him to play, but you've got him in your team.
I don't want him to play, but who else is going to come in and play as that 10? Like, because for me, I just don't see anyone there. Would I risk Antonio right now when he's just come back from an injury? I'd give him 20 minutes. I won't give him an hour, because if he goes down, then people will blame Moyes or the medical staff, or like saying he's come back and he ain't fully fit. Like, we need to learn from the Paqueta situation. I think the game can be won in the last 20 rather than the first hour. We ain't going to beat Arsenal in the first hour, but we can win it in the last sort of 20 to 25 minutes of the game.
We could sure lose it in the first hour, though, couldn't we?
We could do, but I think defensively, we're not as bad as we are going forward at the minute. At the minute, we've got Bowen and Kudus, but I just don't see anything else there, mate. Alvarez is not going to score your goals. Ward-Prowse, it's hit and miss whether he scores a goal or not. And Phillips ain't going to score you no goals. And then you're basically relying on Souček just to run around and do the dogged work. Now, if there was a better player on the bench who could come on and play that position, like a Pablo Fornals, so to speak, then it would have been great. But he's not here. So, honestly, I think Moyes will go with a 4-3-1-2. That's what I think he's going to do. You know what I mean?
Well, I've got a slightly different team than Gatesy. but only slightly. I would play a midfield three the same actually as yours, Gatesy. I would have Alvarez and Phillips beside each other with Ward-Prowse just ahead of them. Because Ward-Prowse is very good in that midfield area, in and around that centre circle. He can orchestrate things from that position. But on my front three, I would obviously have Bowen, but he would be up front. Kudus would be on the right, where it's his best position. And I would play Cornet on the left. I still believe there's a player there in Cornet. I think we're not seeing the best of him because we're not seeing him. I think he's just not playing. He's just not playing. And I think if Cornet was to get a run, he probably won't now with Paqueta due back soon, but I think when Paqueta went down, if Cornet had been put out on that left-hand side, instead of the likes of Benrahma or Fornells or Ward-Prowse even once, which was crazy, Kudus put out there once on the left where he's not as effective. I think if Cornet had been put on and given a bit of a run and allowed to gain his match sharpness and little bit of confidence, then I think we would see that there is a player there. I'm not saying he's a world beater. I'm not saying he's going to be amazing. I'm not saying for a second he could be as good as Bowen or Kudus, but I do think that he can contribute something out there on that left-hand side, especially if he could develop a little bit of an understanding with Emerson, who's obviously an excellent player, on the overlap as well. So I would play him from the start. And I think that front three, you've got real pace in that front three. And I think we're going to need some of that because at times we're going to have opportunities to play a longer ball out from the back. I don't mean obviously hoof ball. I mean a directed ball out to the likes of Cornet, Bowen, Kudus, where they're showing for it and they've got a little bit of space and you can pop a longer ball out to them to get on a really quick counter. And I think when you've got players with the pace and who are so direct, like Cornet, Kudus and Bowen, Arsenal will have to account for that at all times. At all times. It'll be a worry for them, especially if we hit a couple of counter-attacks and either score or come close to scoring and we're troubling with them. It'll give them something to think about where Arteta might say to another player, you know what, just fucking stay a bit further back, mate, because, this is causing a problem here. They've got like serious counter-attacking pace here and it's causing problems. It might make them leave another player back, an extra one player back, which obviously eases a little bit more pressure on our defence. So that's what I would do. I don't think that's what Moyes will do. I think Souček will play. Souček always plays, regardless. He may do the same again. He may do Kudus on the left with Bowen out there on the right and Souček playing in that false nine kind of role. I suspect because he'll want Ward-Prowse on the pitch too. He'll want Phillips on the pitch. He'll want Alvarez on the pitch. He'll want them both on there to protect the back four and to help out defensively. If you've got Alvarez and Phillips in there, plus the four defenders, I think we can make it very difficult for Arsenal to find those gaps between the fullbacks and centre-backs that they like to try and exploit. So I think that's what will happen. But we'll wait and see. But any last thoughts you want to get out there? Or anything you wanted to bring up, chaps, before we go?
Would you be against Emerson playing on the left-hand side of attack?
Like winger?
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't mind that at all.
No, I wouldn't.
Because
I think you could do that, couldn't you? You could put maybe Ben Johnson there.
As long as he doesn't play Cresswell.
Yeah, I think you'd have to move Ben Johnson across and put Koufal at right back, wouldn't you?
Yeah, so it'd be Sofel and Johnson as the fullbacks.
Because I wouldn't mind that. I really wouldn't. I think Emerson does enough to get up and down the pitch. I think he's pretty skillful, like to get past people. He's also quite intelligent with his runs. The runs
wins a lot of free kicks and wins some pens as well.
That's what I'm saying. And he's got them driving runs. So I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind that Emerson as a left-sided player. If you want to be more expansive, so to speak, then you would go with that option. But the problem is Moyes don't do it, does he? But
I don't think Moyes sees it as an option. I think he'll be far more inclined to just put Kudus on the left as he did against United. It's far more likely. But yeah, I'd much prefer to see Emerson there than Kudus, frankly. I want Kudus to be coming in with those driving angled runs off that right wing and getting his shots off.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he's got a
Absolutely.
shot on him. Kudus is a danger every time he shoots. And will be another. I think we just hamstring him a little bit and make it easier for Arsenal to defend against Kudus when he's coming in off the left.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. I really do. I really do.
Anything to add, Gatesy, before we head away?
All I hope for is that the boys put a shift in, they don't disgrace themselves, and that we maybe we might take at least a couple of points off of the Arsenal, and that'd be a good weekend.
Yeah, I think we'll give them a game. I really do. Like I said, when we play these teams, we don't tend to do so well against the kind of Brentfords and stuff like that. The teams that are below us in the table in the London derbies. But like I said, for some reason, when it's Chelsea, Arsenal, or Tottenham, our players are always up for it. Fans are always up for it, and we do well in those games. Whether we win, lose, or draw, we don't get spanked in those games.
I've got one thing I just want to mention. Whatever happens with Moyes in the future, whether he stays, goes, how do you think it's going to affect the fan base? Because the fan base is fractured at the minute. Like, you've got fans dissing other fans, channels dissing other channels. How do you see it going? What is the future?
Yeah, I think at the time when the news breaks, let's say if the news breaks that he won't be offered a new contract and we're going in a different direction, I think the initial reaction will be people at each other's throats on social media. The fans that really like Moyes and want him to get a new contract will be very pissed off. The fans like myself who are Moyes out will be very happy. But then I think that'll settle down, I think, within a few days. And then I think when the new manager comes in, I think everyone will just get behind him and say, all right, look, it is what it is. They'll accept the situation.
Yeah. But what happens if it goes the other way, though, Tommy?
If it goes the other way, you'll keep seeing what you've been seeing all season, James. It'll just be a split fan base continuing on for however long he's here.
Yeah, it's a shame that is, mate. It really is.
We've always had an element of fans that will disagree with you. That's the nature of football, because we've all got different opinions on what floats your boat, whether you're sort of like you're just about the results, whether you're just about entertainment, whether you think it, like me, it should be a sort of like a balance should be struck, blah blah blah. And that's the beauty of football, isn't it? It's all about opinions. Everybody will agree to disagree, and some people can't even do that. But you're away. Whatever happens, guys, whether Moyes stays, whether Moyes goes, Moyes will go one day. He's not going to be here forever. You're never going to please everybody. You're never going to have universal agreement on, this guy should be the manager. No, this guy should be the manager. Oh, we should never have got rid of this guy, whatever.
But is it the worst it's ever been, though, Gatesy? Because for me, this is the worst I've ever seen it. Even...
I think it is, but that's simply because of the era in which we live. We live in a social media driven world where you can get your opinions out there and people can get their opinions out there and not be identifiable and held to account, because they can literally be just some faceless individual out there on cyberspace. So I just think that that's a natural phenomenon. It didn't happen in the 1960s because there was no such thing as Twitter.
Yeah.
Sorry, Drain Hole. I missed it at the time, Drain Hole. Apologies. There it is. He wants Suchik up front and play off him, let him tenderize him. Yeah, he'd certainly bully him.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the future.
Just, in the Suchik head injury bingo, what minute have you guys got?
I'm going to say
54.
I'm going to say 78. I think it's going to be a late tackle or a late clash, and he's going to go down.
I'm intrigued. I'm really intrigued by Damien Demico's. This could be a shout, I've been thinking about this for the last couple of minutes since I've seen it. Aguerd could play left back. That's something you feel like he could actually do. I mean, he's got the pace. He's got the ball carrying ability. He does like to travel with the ball. He's got passing, and would certainly be maybe less of a liability for letting stuff get in behind him, as he is at centre back. Not to say that he'd never let anyone in behind, but you have a better chance of dealing with it if it's out that side near the wing rather than right through the middle towards the keeper. It could be Aguerd could be potentially someone who could adjust very well to that left back position.
And he could be up against Saka and all, so he'd need the pace.
He's got the pace for Saka.
Only thing that I worry about is, does he actually want to be here anymore?
Yeah, I don't. Well, yeah, I mean, look, there's a question there, but I don't think it's at the point where he would down tools or whether he would not bother on the pitch. I think you put him out on the pitch. I think he'll always try. I think he'll be professional. Yeah. So I wouldn't worry about him in his headspace. I think while he's on the pitch, I think that these are professional players, have a lot of pride. They don't like losing games of football. I think that they still want to go out and try and win a game if they can. But it's just an interest. I just thought it was an interesting kind of comment. He seems like a kind of player who could convert very well to that left back position.
Yeah, I agree. I like Ralph's comment there. Gen Z period, you either agree or you get cancelled. Well, back in the day, Ralph, these fans used to support and always support, win or lose, good or bad. So it is what it is. You know what I mean? Yeah. Shout out to the Gen Z. You know what I mean? Here we go.
Look, Twitter's
everyone's always offended.
I know,
yeah.
It's an opinion, people, for fuck's sake.
Opinions like arseholes, mate. Everyone's got one.
You know it. You know it.
Listen, gents, I'm going to leave it there. I really appreciate you coming on. I think this has been a really, really great chat. It's been very interesting. We had a really good one tonight. I think I was kind of engrossed.
No worries, Tom.
So I love getting you guys' opinions. You're obviously very well spoken when it comes to West Ham, and obviously appreciate and respect your opinions, and especially you, James, because I do like, if possible and wherever possible, to get someone on with a differing view so that we can have a back and forth and kind of thrash things out a bit in a respectful manner.
And you know what? We can disagree, but we don't hate each other. That's what I'm going to say. So learn from this.
That's the way to be, boys. That's the way to be.
Learn from this video. Do you know what I mean? Don't hate, love. Yeah. It's all good.
It doesn't have to be nasty. You can have a difference of opinion in a respectful way. But listen, chaps, really appreciate it. Obviously, I'd love to have you on again whenever you're free to do so. Thanks, Gatesy, for rushing back from the gym. And
no problem.
I know with work and everything, it's often tiring for you, but I appreciate you being on, mate.
No problem. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks. And again, cheers, James. Always a pleasure, mate.
No worries, mate. Anytime.
And until next time, chaps.